Hello, everyone. This is Sean from the Soccer Nostalgia blog. I have the pleasure to interview Mr. Davey Naylor. Mr. Naylor is the administrator of EnglandStats.com. He has been a frequent guest on the podcast discussing the history of the England national team. For this interview, we'll look at the match history between England and Argentina. This interview is separate from a podcast series. This video interview will serve as a companion piece to a written blog presentation on the head to head encounters between England and Argentina. Hello, Davey.
Hi, how's it going?
Let's go back in time and look back at the match history between the nations. The sides met for the first time in a friendly at Wembley on May 9th, 1951, which England won 2-1 with Stan Mortensen and Jackie Milburn scoring England's goals. However, the historical significance was that Argentina were the very first non-European foreign opponent of England at Wembley. I imagine not much else is remembered from this match.
Actually, they are the first team to play at Wembley apart from Scotland. What happened when Wembley was built in the 20s? Because it was a very large capacity. The only games really that required that capacity were the England Scotland games for the British home championships. So this was the very first game, and there was 99,000 people turned up this game. This was the first foreign team in inverted commas who came to Wembley. You're absolutely right, but yeah, only Scotland. England played Wales and Northern Ireland at separate venues until around about this time, and then they started moving everything to Wembley. So this was kind of a bit of a groundbreaker, this game.
The sides met twice more in 1953, this time in Argentina. However, only one of these matches is considered official. For the first match on May 14th, 1953 at Buenos Aires, Argentina defeated England 3-1. But for some unknown reason, at least unknown to me, this match is considered unofficial. 3 days later, on May 17th, the sides met again at Buenos Aires. This match was interrupted and stopped in the 23rd minute when the match was scoreless because of the heavy rain. This one was considered official.
I'm with you on this one. I can't find any reason why that first game is not an official game. I've scoured contemporary newspaper reports. I don't have any Argentinian newspaper reports to go on. Maybe if I brushed up on my South American newspapers, I could.
I think Argentina do consider that official.
Do they? They
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
Okay. Because I in British newspapers, a lot of these tours, especially to places like South America, don't forget the news would travel very, very slowly, and it would be only a couple of days later, and then it would only probably be an inch of column in a newspaper about these games, and especially as if they considered the first game as unofficial, and then this second game was abandoned after only 20 odd minutes because of torrential rain and waterlogged pitch. I suspect not much of this is going to be reported back, to be honest. So it is a bit of a mystery so far why the first game they did try and I do know they did try and rearrange this game after it was abandoned, but England were due to play Chile in, I think, on the 24th of May. So and the Argentinian authorities didn't want to rearrange the game so soon. So England moved to Chile and carried on their South American tour without replaying this game. It is one of only two England games which have been abandoned. The other one being the rather disgraceful affair in Dublin by England fans back in '95.
Now we come to the decade of the 1960s. The sides would meet three times during this decade. The first time was during the 1962 World Cup in Chile. On June 2nd, 1962, at Rancagua at Chile, England defeated Argentina 3-1. This was an England side managed by Walter Winterbottom that included the likes of young Bobby Moore. We have Bobby Charlton, Jimmy Greaves, Johnny Haynes, among others. This was a World Cup group match. England won. They would eventually advance from this group, but would be eliminated in the quarterfinals by Brazil. This was the first time the sides had met at a neutral venue.
So this is the first of four World Cup meetings England and Argentina have had. England's dominance was really quite evident from the beginning. They laid siege to the Argentinian goal, and the first goal came after only 17 minutes. It was a handball on the line. I can't remember exactly who it was on the line. I think it was Navarro, I think, the captain, handled as the ball was going in. And Ron Flowers converted the penalty. And then Bobby Charlton scored just before half time, and then Jimmy Greaves added a third. And then the Argentinians got a consolation 10 minutes from the end. Yeah, this was quite an interesting game because England hadn't played very well in the previous game against Hungary, so they needed this game. In fact, they lost against Hungary. They needed to win this game and the next game against Bulgaria, which they didn't. They drew that one. So it was a very mixed tournament, this one. I think, I mean, going all the way to South America again, I don't know what the cause is. England didn't seem to travel very well at these early World Cups. They didn't do very well in the 1950 World Cup, and they didn't do so well in this one. Yeah, they eventually met Brazil in the quarterfinal and were soundly beaten by a very good Brazilian side. A top 10 team, Argentina at the time, but England had their striking boots on this day. That they clicked this day. And yes, as you said, a very young Bobby Moore. It's only his third cap, and Jimmy Greaves playing too. So this is at the start of that golden era of English football in the 60s. Bobby Charlton playing, Jimmy Armfield, Ray Wilson, the World Cup winner as well. Ron Flowers, Johnny Hayes is captain still. He retires after this World Cup. It's an interesting game, with England stuttering and stopping throughout this tournament, but this is the one game that they actually did play well in.
2 years later, in 1964, the sides met again at a neutral venue, this time in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, as part of the Nations Cup. This time, Argentina defeated England 1-0. This was, in fact, Argentina's first official win over England. I imagine not much is remembered from this match, as I was not able to find any footage, but this is Alf Ramsey's the manager, and you already have the likes of Gordon Banks, Ray Wilson, Bobby Moore, Jimmy Greaves, Bobby Charlton, among others, for England.
I'm probably going to say this horribly wrong. It's Taca de Nations, which I think is Nations Cup, yeah, or the Brazil Jubilee Tournament, it has been called as well. It's just a mini tournament in Brazil. Yes, and you've got a good kernel of Alf Ramsey's World Cup winning side: Banks, Wilson, Bobby Moore, Jimmy Greaves, Bobby Charlton, George Eastham's in there, Johnny Byrne is in there. There's some well-known names from the Alf Ramsey era coming in here. If you discount penalty shootouts, this is one of only two wins that Argentina have had over the English side. We'll get to the other one later, more famous one later on, I guess. But yes, you're right. There is no footage of this one, which is a shame, because I'm sure it would have been a great spectacle at the Maracana.
Now we come to the most controversial match between the nations.
Yes, one of the most controversial games. Yes.
Well, but this was the start. This was really the
Yeah.
start of all the tension between the nations over the years, in footballing terms. So this is during the 1966 World Cup quarterfinals, hosted by England at Wembley on July 23rd. England wins this match with a Jeff Hurst header. However, this match is remembered for the controversy regarding the sending off of Argentine captain Antonio Ratin. And of course, after the match, England manager Alf Ramsey, there's a famous image of him trying to intervene and stop his players from exchanging shirts with the opposition. And afterwards, he referred to the Argentines as animals. Like I said, this is the beginning. This is the reference match of all that would follow in terms of the football history between these nations.
In Argentina, it's known as El Robo del Siglo, the robbery of the century. So it goes to show you their attitude towards this game. That it's very polarizing a game. The Argentine tactics were very simple: slow walking football, short passing, clearly designed to interrupt England's wingless wonders passing kind of game. It kind of got nasty quite quickly. The referee, the West German referee, Kretlin, I think you
Oh
pronounce
yeah,
his name.
Rudolf Kretlin, yeah.
He was very, very quickly very overwhelmed by the game and what was happening. I mean, and the English players were far from blameless in this. They committed 30 fouls in the game to Argentina's 18, as far as I can tally up. I'll give you an example. 20 seconds after the restart, after the second half starts, Hurst goes in really, really heavily on Ferrero. But then Ferrero goes down on the floor as if his leg's being kicked off and he's writhing on the floor. The crowd get involved. They start booing. There's theatrics, and which antagonizes the Argentinians further. Hurst is not booked whatsoever. Rattan would later say that the referee played with his England shirt on. So then we come to the incident of what happened with the Argentinian captain. Effectively, don't forget we didn't have yellow and red cards in those days, although they would come about as a direct consequence of this game. I'll go into that later. He was booked. The referee would just write his name into the book. The first one is around about the 30th minute. When he was tripping Bobby Charlton as Charlton goes forward, he just sticks his foot out, and then Rattan is constantly arguing with the referee. England get a free kick on the edge of the area. Our team had also been booked for not retreating back 10 yards. And Rattan is right in Kretlin's face. And by this time, a constant abuse by the Argentinian captain. Kretlin just says, off you go. That's it. We're done. On commentary, Jimmy Hill suggests he was dismissed for violence of the tongue, which was a very 1966 way of saying that he was dismissed for dissent. But then all hell broke loose because Rattan refused to leave the game. And nearly 8 minutes go past whilst they stand on the edge of the touch line by the halfway line arguing about it. And there was the referee and his assistants and Argentinian coaches, and even Juan Carlos Lorenzo, the Argentinian coach, is prominent in the discussions, shall we say. Ken Aston, who is the FA referee liaison, who is the guy who, after this game, on his way home, stops at traffic lights and thinks, hang on a minute, that's a good idea of the way that we can show to players and to crowds and people watching at home who has been booked and who has been sent off using a system of traffic lights. Yellow for a warning, red for a dismissal. And this would go on for the next World Cup. They were first introduced during the 1970s World Cup because in the confusion, nobody knew who had been booked and who had not been booked. And that was what they were arguing at. Rattan didn't think he'd been booked first time around in the 30th minute. So this is around about 34th minute when this entire deliberation was going on, and he wouldn't even. In fact, the police actually had to, two police bobbies had to come down and remove Rattan from the pitch, and he was still arguing as he went off. And don't forget, at the old Wembley, the tunnel is behind one of the goals, so they're arguing on the halfway line. So Rattan has to walk all the way around half of the pitch to get off, where he's being booed constantly by the very partisan English crowd. And the whole thing is an absolute mess. Later on, Kretlin got his shirt ripped by Ferrero, which would earn the Argentinian a 3-match ban. Apparently, Onega was sanctioned for spitting at FIFA Vice President Harry Cavan. And yeah, Alf Ramsey ran onto the pitch at the end of the game to try and stop George Cohen swapping shirts, because George Cohen that's what you do. You swap shirts at the end of a game. But Alf Ramsey ran on and stopped him. And yeah, he called them animals. And at the end, Kretlin had to be escorted off the pitch by police. And interestingly, though, the goal that won it, we've all forgotten about the goal that won it at this point. Jeff Hurst header from a Martin Peters cross. It's a really good goal, and it gets completely overwhelmed in all the other shenanigans that was going. In fact, I think Bobby Charlton described it as the best goal he ever saw at his time with England. So yeah, a fine goal to end an awful match.
As far as England, this was the first match that Jeff Hurst took over, replacing Jimmy Greaves in attack.
Yeah,
Because Jimmy Greaves has, if you remember, Jimmy Greaves had started the World Cup. And then from
correct.
this
Yeah,
moment on, it was Jeff Hurst. Also, I think it was the first time England played in a 4-4-2 formation in this 1966 World Cup. As you mentioned, Argentina were fined 1,000 Swiss francs. Ratin received a 4-match ban, and you mentioned Onega and Ferrero. They received 3-match bans each. There's reports that the Argentina players they spat on FIFA officials and even tried to enter the England dressing room to fight.
end of
Are
the
they,
game. Yeah,
yeah.
they wanted
So
to carry it on after the game. There is a, I wouldn't call it a conspiracy. I don't know whether that is too strong a word, but certainly there was a certain bias against the South American teams.
that's what they believe. Yes. In
Yeah,
fact, Joao Havelange was very vocal about that.
yeah, but Pele from in Brazil didn't have a great tournament because their best player Pele was absolutely kicked out of the tournament during their games. Yeah, so
Yeah, and Uruguay, I think they also had players sent off against West Germany.
I haven't gone back and watched all the 66 games. I've watched the England Argentina all of England's games,
Yeah.
but not any of the others in
Yeah,
detail.
whether true or not, there was a feeling from at least South American nations that there was some type of a bias going on, favoring England, either England to win and in general European teams to do better.
Yeah.
So, but we'll
I
never
mean,
know.
the advantage that England has by playing at Wembley for all of their games. I mean, how that they worked that out that all three group games and then a quarterfinal, a semi-final, and the final. Okay, I can understand the final has to be at the bigger stadium, but it was a little bit. I guess in World Cups, home teams do get a little bit of advantage because they usually put in Group A, so they always get they always have the opening match these days, and they probably put in the best
Yeah,
stadium, but they don't always play at the same stadium in every single group match, nor their path to in the knockout stages would they be put in the right stadium. And of course, there was lots of other problems with hotels. There was lots of problems with the press. There was lots of problems with training grounds and stuff like that. There was lots of complaints from a lot of the teams, most notably from the South American contingent.
we can't minimize the whole animals attack by Alf Ramsey because this would follow England into the next World Cup. It's believed that England received a hostile reception in Mexico, mostly as a result of this, the whole bracelet incident in Colombia with Bobby
Bogota
Moore.
bracelet, yeah.
Yeah, all those are related to Alf Ramsey's outburst.
It is probably one of the most famous games, and its legacy lives on this game for years, and exactly for those reasons that you said. I mean, I would rank this game higher than the probably more famous game in the 86 World Cup as what it did or good or bad for the game. It's a very interesting. I mean, I could talk about this game
Right, right. We could talk about this
for
game
years,
the
but
entire podcast.
exactly, yeah.
There would be a gap of 8 years between the nations for the next match. This would be a friendly again at Wembley on May 22nd, 1974. For this match, Argentina came back from a 2-0 to tie the match in the last minute. England had not qualified for the 1974 World Cup. We have the interim spell of Joe Mercer as manager after Alf Ramsey was fired. Argentina were preparing for the 1974 World Cup in West Germany, and this was part of their preparations in Europe. Mike Shannon and Frank Worthington had given England the lead on either side of the halftime, but Mario Kempes, who at the time was relatively unknown, at least maybe to a European audience. He scored a first in the 58th minute. He scored a penalty kick just a minute before the end after Emlyn Hughes had fouled Kempes in a box.
So there is an Argentinian referee for this game. This was a stipulation by the Argentinian FA. Such was the strained nature of the two FAs and the two countries at this point that they requested. Our last visit to Wembley didn't go so well. We want our own referee, otherwise we're not coming. But when you come and visit us later on, you can have an English referee. I don't think they meet them, though. I don't think that game ever materialized. They were going to play in Buenos Aires the following summer, but that game with an English official, but that game never was arranged. So, yes, so England are 2-0 up, and then Kempes scores twice, one with a 90th minute penalty. I think it's a reasonably fair result. England weren't, the great team of the 60s. They were, as you said, they failed to qualify the World Cup. So this was kind of like the end of their season. This was it. They weren't, Argentina were, but England weren't. So this was Argentina's warm-up game before a World Cup. And England were, I think they played East Germany, and then that was it basically for their summer. And they had the summer off watching the football. I don't have many things to tell you about this game. It was a reasonably well fought game. Kevin Keegan is only his fifth cap, so he's coming through, and of course Trevor Brooking, he's only his second cap. So we've got two new players that would go on for the next 8 years to dominate English football. Those two players. Chilton also is in goal. Is playing his 20th cap, so he's only tender age of 24 at this point. So he's got quite a few caps to come. He's got another 105 to get through. Compared to the previous game and next couple, it's not as exciting, let's just say.
The next match would be another ill-tempered affair, this time on June 12th, 1977 at Buenos Aires. And Argentina is going to be the host of the 1978 World Cup. So during the summer of 1977, they stage a number of friendlies against European nations. We have France, we have West Germany, and a number of European teams during that summer are hosted by Argentina as part of preparations or dress rehearsal for the next year's World Cup. So this match on June 12th is at Buenos Aires at the La Bombonera, the Boca Juniors Stadium. England wearing red shirts, managed by Don Revie. For England, you have the likes of Ray Clements, Phil Neal, Emlyn Hughes, Keegan captaining England, Ray Wilkins, among others. For Argentina, you would have the likes of players who would form the backbone of the next year's World Cup winning side: Daniel Passarella, Ozzy Ardiles, Tarantini, Gallego, Bertoni, Luque, among others. In the second minute, England takes the lead when Stuart Pearson scored from Mike Shannon's near post cross. Argentina would tie the match quickly in the 15th minute. Daniel Bertoni scored from a free kick. However, this match is remembered for the sending offs in the 82nd minute when Daniel Bertoni punched Trevor Cherry. Trevor Cherry himself was sent off. I believe both players had already been booked before, but it's strange that Cherry was sent off after getting punched. In any case, Bertoni was subsequently suspended, but I think Trevor Cherry was exonerated, if I'm not mistaken.
So this is, compared to the last fixture, we're now going back to form from the 66 encounter. So this is a very volatile fixture, but they have a referee who firmly clamps down on the players from the initial get-go. He's a Uruguayan referee called Barreto. Unlike the 66 encounter, he wasn't overwhelmed by the occasion and put his foot down. Some of the tackles that were going in and some of the feisty nature he managed to control until Yeah, the 83rd minute. I'll read you what the Guardian wrote. The game was proceeding to a draw when Cherry made a mild challenge. This is could be slightly biased from a London newspaper. Cherry made a mild challenge from behind, but Tony spread his palms wide as the Argentinian turned and received a blow in the mouth for his trouble. The referee's back was turned, but a linesman had spotted the incident, although his version must have been a little awry, because after Bertoni had been sent off, an amazed Cherry, mouth starting to bleed, followed him. Afterwards, it was learned that Cherry had lost 2 front teeth. So that's your man on the spot in Buenos Aires. That was his take on it, and it does seem, but by the authorities at the end of the game, yes, Bertoni gets suspended and Cherry doesn't. So yeah, it does seem that kind of like does sound about right, which is unfortunate for Trevor Cherry.
The next match is at Wembley on May 13th, 1980. This is significant because this is Diego Maradona's first match against England. This match was billed as a duel between Keegan and Maradona. We have the famous photograph of them exchanging shirts. Later, we have the famous photograph of Maradona meeting the band Queen, I think with Freddie Mercury wearing an Argentinian kit, if I remember correctly.
Not to be controversial at all, no. There's never Freddie style.
So the match itself, England wins 3-1. Davey Johnson, the Liverpool striker, scores twice in the 42nd and 50th minute. Daniel Passarella scores on a penalty kick in the 55th minute after Sansom had fouled Maradona in the box. And in the 69th minute, Kevin Keegan scored the third goal. No controversy in this match.
No controversy, but a really good game. This is the first of the classic England Argentina games, and it's a superb game with the 19-year-old Diego Maradona. Don't forget, Argentina are world champions, and they come to England playing at Wembley against a really good England side with the likes of Dave Watson, Ray Wilkins, Kevin Keegan, Steve Coppell, Tony Woodcock, David Johnson. And right from the get-go, there are chances. In the first half, there are lots of chances. And in fact, it's surprising the ball doesn't actually go into the net until right at the end of the first half. England score. David Johnson scores in the 42nd minute, and then he, after half-time, he gets another one. And Maradona, we see the first English people see the first glimpse of what Maradona's like. His mazy run, which is upended by Samson, bringing him down for the penalty, is joyous. We see a glimpse of what he can do, and of course, Passarella steps up and bangs in the penalty. But England do come back, and Keegan finishes it off with a nice, just on the edge of the area shot. So yeah, this is a great game. It doesn't have any of the volatility of other games. There's only one yellow card in the entire game, and that was Passarella just obstructing Keegan in the first half. Yeah, so the feistiness has gone away and the good football has come back, so which is what I think what we want, really.
The next match is another memorable match between the nations. This is on June 22nd, 1986, during the Mexico World Cup at Azteca. This is the first meeting between the nations following the 1982 Falklands War. Argentina wins this match 2-1, and of course, everyone remembers Diego Maradona's hand of God goal and the second memorable one. Perhaps the most memorable goal in World Cup history. This match has been dissected as nauseum. What more can you add?
Well, we've done this in one of your podcasts before this game to great length. I won't go into too much detail because I'm guessing everybody who knows anything about England Argentina football probably has this entirety of this game emblazoned in their mind. Yes. I will say the difference between the two goals is absolutely stark. And this is both sides of the genius that is Maradona. Someone that talented to score that second goal needs to do what he did for the first goal. I always find that quite bizarre. It's like Suarez and biting. It was such a talented football. Why did he need to sort of like do all of that, all the handball against, was it Ghana in the
Yeah.
2010 World Cup? I don't understand why such good players have to resort to such things to get ahead. It bemuses me a bit, but I will say one thing about the second goal, as amazing as it is. There is a foul on Glenn Hoddle directly before Maradona picks the ball up, which the Tunisian referee, who did not have the best game, he misses completely. That's all I'll say about that. That's all I'm going to say. Also, the other thing I will say is the game changed when John Barnes came on, because he was just pinging it from the left wing. Lineker managed to get there on the end of one, and the other one, which is I still to this day, and if you ask Gary Lineker himself, he'll probably say I have no idea how it didn't go in. It's a perfect cross from Barnes, and he's right at the far post, and how it even hits is how it doesn't go in. It's to draw a level. I don't know. England are very, very unlucky this day, but Argentina go on to win their second World Cup, and the rest is history.
There's a gap of 5 years. The next time the sides meet is at Wembley on May 25th, 1991, as part of the England Challenge Cup. England at this point is managed by Graham Taylor, while Argentina also have a new coach in Alfio Basile. Now, like the 1974 friendly, England were leading 2-0 after goals by Gary Lineker and David Platt. And Argentina stormed back and tied the match after scoring in the 65th and the 70th minute. And both of these goals were corner kicks, one from the left side, one from the right side, from Antonio Mohamed. And both were headers from Claudio Garcia for the first one and Dario Franco for the second one. I guess there was some gamesmanship from the Argentines towards the end. And I think as a result, English players refused to exchange their kits with them. And the crowd also booed the Argentines, and coins were thrown. At the end, the Argentina players started taunting the crowd by removing their shirts and waving them. Many look upon this act as some sort of a act of defiance, lingering from the Falkland Islands conflict that was still in recent memory.
Yeah. Well, another entertaining game, and again, as you say, another Argentinian game where England let a 2-goal lead slip. England dominated the first half, really. There was some absolutely great play, fast open football. Pierce's free kick catches out the Argentinian defence, and Lineker steps up to nod from 10 yards. And then Platt makes it 2 in the second half, and then they commit the cardinal sin, which is conceding 2 goals up, concede from a set piece, and that's what happens. And then 6 minutes later, they've got an equaliser. The removing of the shirts at the end of the game was very ill advised. That could have been dangerous, but they were taunting the crowd. They had their heads up. They come down for 2-0, and that's what they wanted to do. England do actually win the England Challenge Cup, because the other match, it's against England, USSR, and Argentina, and England win that. The other game, England beat Russia 3-1, and then the other game was 1-1 draw between USSR and Argentina. So England won another trophy for England. They'll have to buy a new trophy cupboard after all the trophies that they've got. Another good game, some silliness that could have been avoided. I get a feeling in a lot of England Argentina games that the referee has to be spot on his game sometimes, and I think a lot of the time, especially the 66 game, the 86 game, this game, the referee, this was a Yugoslavian chap called Petrovic. I know it's a friendly, competitive, fairly minor tournament, but if he'd have shown a few yellow cards early doors, things might have been a little bit different. I think you've got to get the referee has to take control of the game really and make sure that it doesn't descend into just a kicking contest. And I think a lot of referees in these encounters are wanting a little bit.
The next encounter is another memorable World Cup match. This is on June 30th, 1998, during the 1998 World Cup in France. It's a second round match at Saint-Étienne. This match ends 2-2 in regulation time. It's remembered for Michael Owen's wonder goal, the 18-year-old, and of course, David Beckham's sending off for a foul on Diego Simeone. Argentina would take the lead with a penalty kick through Gabriel Batistuta in the 6th minute. Alan Shearer would tie with a penalty kick from England in the 10th minute. Then in the 16th minute, we have this memorable goal by Michael Owen. And in the 45th minute, the match is tied when you have the free kick routine where Veron just passes to Zanetti on the line with a wall, and then he slams it in. In the 47th minute, we have the controversial moment where David Beckham is sent off. The match goes into extra time, penalty kick shootout, and Argentina wins 4-3. Again, this is another match that has been referenced at length.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot to unpack here, but we'll give it a go. So yeah, two penalties in the first 10 minutes. First one, David Seaman is suckered into giving away a penalty by Simeone, who just simply waits for him to the on-rushing keeper just waited for him to take his legs out. There's a little bit naive by Seaman and very wily by Simeone. And then Michael Owen is a constant threat. His pace, they just can't handle it. And he goes down, he gets tripped. Ayala brings him down and Shearer tucks away the penalty. So that's the first 10 minutes. We've already had 2 goals, 2 penalties. And then Owen's wonder goal is it's quite interesting. If you ever watch it, there's kind of like a bit where Paul Scholes is there, sort of like going, pass it to me. But basically, Owen sort of weaving and dodging that actually he starts weaving towards Scholes, and Scholes realizes, I'm going to be in the way here. So he kind of has to move out of the way. It's quite funny, really. And he just takes them all on. And Chameau is, yeah, he's absolutely outpaced. I mean, he's left for dust. And Ayala is, I mean, I don't know. He could probably only see a blur of I don't know, white as he runs past him. So it's an amazing goal. And then, but as much as Michael Owen is wowing at one end, the other end are letting in goals. I mean, it's a classic set piece routine from Argentina right at the end of the first half. In fact, it's the last kick of the first half. England should be going in 2-1 up. But no, they go in 2-2 because, Argentina do this really impressive free kick routine, set piece routine, and Zanetti bangs it in. And then we come to the incident with Beckham, which is I mean, Simeone gets a yellow card for his, clumsy foul, but to lie on the floor and kick out like that, you look back at it and you think, you got a red card for that. You look back at it now and you think, no, that's not, But in those days, I suppose, any kind of again, I was bemoaning last game that you don't have strong enough referees, but Kim Milton Nielsen in this game clearly showed that, right, we're not having any of that. So, and off you go. So, and then the most extraordinary thing happened. England, who had not played so well, they kept letting let 2 really naive goals in. All of a sudden, with 10 men, just galvanized around each other and did this most amazing display. They matched Argentina all the way. Even Campbell should have, when he did, he gets the ball in the net on the 81st minute, but if you look at the replay, Shearer's impeding the goalkeeper a little bit. So we all thought, I remember this moment very clearly. We all thought England had won the game, Campbell's header, but England were the better team. And then into extra time, it it carries on. England are still doing really well. They're still carrying on with, and it goes to penalties. And of course, everybody knows what happens when it goes to penalties. But even during the penalty shootout, there's some really good goals going on. In fact, I've analysed this penalty shootout, and there are only two rubbish penalties, and they're the two that get saved. Crespo's the first one to miss. Seaman dives to his left and palms the ball out at a nice height, and then Ince, almost a carbon copy. Sorry, there's three penalties that get saved, not two. So Crespo, Ince, and then David Batty at the end, but they're all easy heights for the goalkeeper. The rest of the penalties, Bertie, Veron, Gallardo, and Ayala for Argentina, and Shearer, Merson, and Owen for England, are top notch. I mean, they are in the corner, in the side netting, in the roof of the goal. The keeper has no chance. Seaman and Carlos Roa, they have absolutely no chance. And I always think this when there's a penalty shootout going on. This might be just my mind playing with me. I never get excited if the opposition team miss their penalty first, because there's so many times I've seen it. If you miss first, you don't necessarily lose a game when it comes to England. And it happens the other way round as well. England have missed penalties, like against Colombia in the 2018 World Cup. They missed first and they went on to win. So maybe it's just a trick. I might have to drill down on the statistics and actually find this out. But in my mind, I feel that if you miss first, you go on to win. And this is exactly what happened here. And it was such a disappointing end to such a good game, and such a spirited fight after what had happened with going down to 10 men. And it was so disappointing. And Argentina would go on to play and be absolutely annihilated by the Netherlands in the next game with a wonderful Dennis Bergkamp goal. So England wouldn't have got very far after this, but it was a fun night, let's just say. Looking back on it, at the time, I was absolutely in bits, I should think, probably, but it was a great game of football.
The next match between the nations is forgettable, scoreless friendly on February 23rd, 2000 at Wembley.
Yeah.
And yeah, not much can be said about this match.
Heskey does okay. I mean, that's the only thing I'll say about it. Emil Heskey, it's his fifth cap. He's coming through the ranks. He plays alongside Shearer. That's the only thing I'd say about this, really.
So this is an England managed by Kevin Keegan, and Argentina is managed by Marcelo Bielsa.
Not much. You've got still some of the players. You've got Kiki Gonzalez, you've got Javier Zanetti, Gabriel Batistuta, Ariel Ortega, Juan Sebastian.
Yeah, no, there's plenty of stars on each side. Yeah, there's plenty of stars, but yeah, not much entertainment.
No, sadly not. We'll skip on to the next one.
Yeah, so the next one is again during the World Cup on June 7th, 2002 at Sapporo at Japan, which was billed as the rematch between Beckham and Simeone. This time, Beckham would be victorious as he would score the game-winning penalty kick in the 44th minute. England managed by Sven-Goran Eriksson.
Yes, so in Japan in the 2002 World Cup, yes, lucky referee for England, Pierluigi Collina. Everybody knows who he is. I'm sure he's very distinct look, but he's always been a very good omen when England play. I think only one game. I think he's refereed 6 or 7 England games, and England only lost one. So yes, it was a very tense affair. England had drawn with Sweden in the first game. Everything was billed as Beckham versus Simeone again. And it was actually Pochettino, the erstwhile Chelsea manager, who brings down Owen. A lot of people say it's a bit of a dive. It's contact. So he might have gone down a little bit easy, maybe. But, you'll have to ask Michael Owen, really, about that. But and then Beckham just bangs a penalty down the middle, really. Well, towards the right-hand side of Cavallero. But Cavallero just doesn't move. He just stands there. And what happened? And that's it. That's the only goal, and that's all they need. Argentina crash out of this tournament at the group stage. England go on their second round game. They comfortably beat Denmark, but then get knocked out by good goal or a freak goal by Brazil by
Ronaldinho.
Ronaldinho. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's revenge, I guess. So it's a good game for Beckham. It's his redemption because now he's captain of the side. You know, they I think they rather stupidly call this the foot of God game, but not buying that. I mean, it's only a penalty. If it was one of his Beckham special free kicks, then I would go for that. But anyway, it's the penultimate chapter in the history of Argentina, England, and England are back on top again.
The last time these sides have met to date was astonishingly over 18 years ago. This is at a neutral venue at Geneva in Switzerland on November 12, 2005, with England winning 3-2. We have Wayne Rooney and Michael Owen scoring two very late goals after Hernan Crespo had given Argentina the lead. Rooney tied the match. Then early in the second half, Walter Samuel gave Argentina the lead. But then, yeah, we have the late show from Michael Owen. This is in England with the likes of Frank Lampard, Steven Gerrard, Beckham, Rio Ferdinand, John Terry. Argentina managed by Nestor Peckerman. We have Crespo, Tevez, Riquelme, other familiar faces. Zanetti, Ayala, among others.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, this is it's remarkable that this is the last meeting. It's still fresh in my mind though. It's a great game with some great players and 5 goals, and seems to be again when one team is think they're going to win, they let it slip and turn 2 goals around. How many times have we said that today? So yeah, Argentina are thinking they've won it 2-1, and then in the 87th minute, Gerrard hoists a high ball, and Owen heads it in from at the far post, and England are now celebrating they've got a remarkable draw, and then Owen saves the best to last. He jumps in front of Peter Crouch, who you'd think was more likely to get the ball, being he's about 6 foot taller than Michael Owen, and it's Cole's cross. I can't say the Argentinian keeper's name, Abondanzeri.
Roberto Abondanzieri, yes.
There we go. Yeah. So he gets in front of Crouch and the Abondanzieri and nods it in to win the game in stoppage time, and one of the last kicks of the game, which is amazing. It's a great turnaround for England, and yeah, and then they're off to the World Cup the following year. So I mean, I think they'd finished qualifying by now. They would have qualified for the 2006 World Cup. So everything is looking rosy for England in this game. So another great game, another classic match with a great ending. It's a very interesting history of these two. It's a very colourful history between these two sides. I wish there was more games. There's only been 14, as I said, and it's crazy that there hasn't been one for the last 18 years. This is the last game.
Let's look at it on balance. Strange as it may seem, Argentina has never defeated England on home soil because for some reason the 1953 match is considered unofficial.
Yeah.
Many of the encounters from 1966 onwards have been linked with politics. Obviously, Alf Ramsey's animals comment made future encounters tense, as did the 1982 Falklands War. The World Cup matches in 1966, 1986, and 1998, and to a lesser extent, the 2002, are all memorable and controversial for different reasons and are part of football history. In terms of actual wins, England have the edge. However, remarkably, Argentina's 2 wins, 1998 one was technically a tie, includes the 1986 World Cup match. If we look at it, if we really look at the history, we kind of come away thinking that Argentina has had the edge because of the key wins. But if you look at the actual numbers, England has won more than Argentina. So that's kind of the strange aspect of these encounters. I think the takeaway is that these encounters will always be shrouded with the politics around it.
Absolutely, absolutely. During this entire podcast, I've been saying there's 4 World Cup encounters. Of course, there's not. There's 5. Yes, there's 62, 66, 86, 98, and 2002. Yes, absolutely. The football aside, there is a lot of politics throughout a majority of these matches, from the 66 World Cup through most definitely the 86 World Cup and beyond. I don't know how much it affects the players. I don't know. I'm sure they're aware of it, and I'm sure that there are certain aspects, especially the celebrations we've seen some celebrations, but especially Argentina taking their shirts off at Wembley to antagonize the crowd. The partisan crowds at both Wembley and in Buenos Aires really do set the mood, and I'm sure it does affect the players to a certain degree. It's a very interesting matchup, and yeah, I just wish there were more of them, really, because I'm sure they will always be controversial. These games, it gives it that edge, gives it that special edge that in some other counters. It's like England Germany thing. There is, although it's entirely in the mind of us English, the Germans they don't regard us as rivals at all. Like they have the French and the Italians and the Dutch, who they regard as rivals. So it's entirely a one-way thing, but it adds that extra spice when England play Germany or England play Argentina, because of the history that's gone on both on and off the field. And if it makes it a better game, and a majority of these games that we've listed here, that we've gone through here, the majority of them are really epic, brilliant games. There are a few duds here and there, especially the 2001, which we skipped over very quickly, and the 53 games which get abandoned. But the majority of them are absolute belters. So long may it continue, as long as it's relatively peaceful off the field. With no more political wars or anything like that, or anything that'd be dangerous to people. But that, right, it's a special rivalry, I suppose. Yeah, long may it continue, and I want to see more. Please,
Indeed.
FAs get together and sort it out. Yeah, we don't have to wait for another World Cup for them to be paired, please.
Well, with that, I would like to thank you for your participation in this interview, and to let everyone know to please read the main blog article as well for more detail. The link is included on the video upload description, along with our respective contact information. In addition, on the following days, I will upload the compendium with all the lineups and any available photos and videos from these matches. So, David, always a pleasure, and hope to continue these discussions on England national team football history.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you.